I'm Pam at pamfox.org, and in today's video I am going to be cooking fettuccine Alfredo from my cookbook Anti-Reflux. So if you haven't picked up a copy of my cookbook yet, it's available on Amazon. This is what it looks like. It's available on Amazon for, I think, still $5 and change. And today we're going to be making the plant-based fettuccine Alfredo, which is made, the sauce is a creamy, decadent, delicious, satisfying sauce. Alfredo sauce that's made with a Yukon Gold potato and some cashews and some nutritional yeast and a couple of other things. Let me pull this recipe back up. And then we're going to be talking today, I'm going to be sharing my best 3 tips for setting yourself up for success on a plant-based diet. So these are the things that really helped me when I was getting started, and I talk about these 3 things all the time. I think they're really, really important. So we'll get into that as well. But let's go ahead and get started. And this is a really quick and easy meal. And the time it takes you to put on a pot of pasta, you can have this meal ready. So I've got my water boiling, and you can use whatever pasta is your favorite. You can do a gluten-free pasta if you want. I have fettuccine here, but I'm going to go ahead and use some linguine just because I have a box that's already opened that I want to use up. So we'll go ahead and drop that in the water. I feel like I need to put more than that in there. Open up another box. I like to buy these organic pastas. This is whole wheat linguine, which I don't know if I should be cooking them at the same time, but hi Jay, you on a vegan diet? Oh, awesome. And living light, weaning yourself off of meat. Oh yeah, you think it's hard, huh? Yeah, it can be hard. I'm going to be talking today about the 3 things that if you do these 3 things, they're really going to set yourself up for success and make it feel like you're not even on a diet. And that's what I always say is if you're on a diet and you feel like you're not on a diet, then you're really setting yourself up for success. Because if you don't feel like you're on a diet, you're not going to feel, like you're not going to feel like you're really missing anything. As much as you may love meat, if you can, for example, if you can really find things that you love just as much as meat or almost as much as meat, then you're not going to feel really that deprived. And if you allow yourself to get hungry quite frequently, it's going to be difficult to succeed on a plant-based diet as well. So I'm just going to be sharing 3 of my top tips that I shared in the book. I actually have lots of tips, and I'm pretty sure I've done a couple of videos on it, but you'd have to scroll way back a couple years to find them on my YouTube channel. And by the way, we're streaming live on YouTube into the Anti-Reflux Facebook group. If you're new and you'd like to join that Facebook group, just go on over to Facebook and request to join. I come in here. I've been coming in once or twice, sometimes twice a week, to do videos for my new cookbook because it's a new cookbook and I'm promoting it. Probably next month I'll probably just do once a week. We'll do another challenge in August, but I'll probably come in and do a recipe once a week, and I'll probably do recipes outside of the book as well that aren't necessarily for reflux. So I'm just cutting these up really small. And I'm just putting them into a pot of boiling water because that'll make it cook nice and fast. So when you're cooking up your potatoes to make your sauce, you just want to cook them until they're soft. And the smaller you cook them, the faster they cook. Excuse me, the smaller you cut them, the faster they cook. All right, so that's our one potato, and of course you could modify this. I only cook for myself. I cook for me, myself, and I, and that's it. So when I cook this food, it's usually enough for myself and enough for leftovers the next day, or it's enough for, like if I'm making a lunch, it's enough for my lunch and maybe dinner. Okay, so let's go on with our sauce. So it calls for 1 potato, it calls for a 1/4 cup of these cashews, and I just like to get these, I mean, they're called raw cashews, but technically they're not raw. I don't know if you guys knew that, but raw cashews are actually inedible. If you pick them like right from the tree and eat them, they can be toxic. This is what I've heard and read. So I'm just going to put in a 1/4 cup, which is like a handful of these cashews. And honestly, the more cashews you put in, the creamier it's going to be. And if you're trying to gain weight, put in more cashews. If you're trying to lose weight, you could skimp on those a little bit, but this is what gives it, between the starch of the potato and the nut, which has a creamy fattiness to it, it gives this sauce a super rich, really decadent texture. All right, so the sauce has the nuts, the potato, and then the nutritional yeast. This says Bragg's. It's actually not. I've been buying the bulk and just reusing my container, but it's nutritional yeast, and these are the flakes, and it calls for a tablespoon. And this is going to actually go into the blender when that's done, so we won't put it in quite yet. All right, so we got our pasta. Let's go ahead and prep our vegetables. So with this fettuccine, you could just do the pasta and the sauce. To me, that's kind of boring. I like to do vegetables in there with it. So this calls for a cup of mushrooms and a cup of broccoli and then some black olives, kind of to give it some additional flavor and garnish. But I love to just throw in whatever I've got. So today I've got some of that kale and spinach mixture in the refrigerator. I think I'll throw some of that in there. And then I'm getting low on this bag of carrots, so I'll just throw that in there as well. But the idea is just to kind of have a stir-fry medley that's to go with this pasta so you can get your vegetables in. So that's more than a cup, but it's okay. This calls for mushrooms. You could use any mushroom that you like. These happen to be organic baby Bella mushrooms, pre-sliced, so don't even have to cut those. And it calls for a cup, so I'll probably just throw a couple handfuls. When we're ready, this is all going to go, and we can go ahead and do that now, but, well, no, we can't because I don't have a burner free. So we can go ahead and talk for a minute, but yeah, I'm just going to saute the broccoli and the mushrooms and the carrots. I'll put that all into a pan at once and saute that, and then it'll go right with the sauce onto the pasta when the pasta is ready. So let's talk for a minute while that's cooking. I've got a couple more minutes on the pasta, and the potatoes are just about ready, so probably, excuse me, just a couple minutes. Let's go ahead and go to, oops. Let's go, let's see, I think it's chapter 10. Chapter 10, yes, this is entitled, Will the Food Be Bland and Unsatisfying? So let's go through this. I talk a little bit, but like in here, kind of what I was just saying, if you don't feel like you're on a diet, you're going to succeed on that diet, no matter what diet that is. If you don't feel like you're being deprived, if you don't feel like you're starving yourself, if you don't feel like you're really missing out on much and you're really enjoying your food, you will not feel like you're on a diet, and you're going to succeed on that diet. So I says, remember these things, these three things. I consider the following 3 points to be of utmost importance when it comes to success on a plant-based diet. So number one is understanding your palate. So this is really important. So I say plant-based eating tends to seem bland at first. So if you're transitioning to your plant-based diet and you're trying some of these recipes or maybe some other recipes, and especially in my cookbook, I mean, we're eliminating garlic and onions and vinegar and spices, spicy spices and lemon and some of these different ingredients that we commonly cook with, and then we cut those things out. We're cutting out cheese, and your palate isn't used to that, and so you can really notice that the food tastes boring and bland, and you might think to yourself, oh, I could never eat like this for the rest of my life. I could never eat like this for the rest of the week, for that matter. It's too boring, and I'll feel deprived. So what you have to understand in that transition phase, in the beginning, is that your palate has to reset. And the way I say reset, because there's this phenomena that's called, palate resetting, that I didn't even believe it at first. But if you imagine your skin and how it sloughs and regenerates new skin every few weeks, your tongue is the same. It's no different. And so if your palate is constantly getting like clogged up with the fat, the saturated fat from meat, dairy, and eggs that are commonly in your diet, that can cause the inability. That's about ready. I'm just going to check this potato. I didn't put enough water in there. Not quite. That's going to burn though. All right, let's take a break, and I think we can go ahead and make this sauce work. Those potatoes, yeah, they're tender. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's make this sauce really quick. In the blender. Now, you don't need a Vitamix for this because the potatoes are nice and soft, the cashews are nice and soft because you cooked them. If you have a Vitamix, that's great. You might have to blend it a little bit longer just to get that creaminess going. So I just got potatoes and cashews. That's all in there. And the water all boiled off, so we're going to have to add some water to this. I'm just going to add a little bit of water from my pasta. You want to, I already took the recipe off. I usually just eyeball this. I just add a little bit of water. If you add too much, it's going to be too thin, and you're not going to have that thick, creamy texture. So we're going to do a nice heaping tablespoon, because I've grown to really love this stuff. You want to do less is more when you're starting out, if you're not sure if you like this or not, because it does have a strong, think of it as, you know how some things have strong flavors, like a stinky cheese has that really pungent flavor that can be offensive to some, and then others love it. That's kind of what this is like. And so you want to start out less is more and really gauge. And again, we'll get back to the palate. But I know that when I first started cooking with nutritional yeast, it wasn't my favorite, and now I love it. So, all right, so you can salt this. Of course, you can leave the salt out. That's up to you. Or you can salt it with Bragg's liquid aminos. I think it calls for, I can't remember, but I do like it salty, so I'm going to put in a whole teaspoon of salt. We're close to it. All right, so let's blend. So this is going to be loud. And it needs more water, so we'll add more water. Just a little at a time. So I just want to show you this Alfredo sauce. Go this way. It's just almost like a hollandaise sauce. It's super creamy. It's very decadent, and it's really delicious. It's really hot right now, but I just want to make sure it's got enough salt in it. It's perfect. It's perfect. So yeah, I mean, as you can see, I mean, it looks like an Alfredo sauce. There's no cream in it. There's no butter in it. It's potatoes, which are packed with nutrition, and cashews. So, and nutritional yeast, you know, all good stuff. All good stuff. So, okay, so I've got this pan heating, and we're just going to saute We're going to saute these vegetables really quick. See how our pasta is doing. I forgot to set a timer, so. That's about ready. Just about. So I lied. It's going to take me a little bit longer than a pot of pasta. So I'm just letting that heat up really quick. And I don't cook with any oil, so I just throw all the vegetables in. We're going to give them a quick saute, and then it'll be ready. And if they start to burn in my nonstick pan, I just add a little bit more. You'll see that here in a minute. It's hot enough. So we're just going to put the broccoli in. We're going to put a couple handfuls of these mushrooms in. And we're just going to kind of let it be. I'm going to put all these carrots in. And we'll skip the spinach. We'll save it for something else. Okay. Okay, so getting back to the palate. So again, the saturated fat, or if you have a diet that's really rich in, junk foods and you're cutting all that out, like donuts and candy bars and stuff like that. Again, all of the fat in there, the chemicals, or if you smoke, these things can really alter your taste buds. And so in the beginning, you're cutting all of that out, and your food can taste really bland. And so one thing you just need to do is keep that in mind. So if you make something and it's a super dud and you're really disappointed and you think, I'm never going to be able to do this long term because the food's not good, and the food has to be good. Just remind yourself that after about a month, your palate resets, and then the flavor in your foods will really start to kind of explode. Like, I was really shocked when it happened to me, because it took a little bit longer than they say, 3 weeks, a month. It took me a little bit longer than that. So when it started happening, my husband had made these. We were doing like a potato bar night, like a baked potato bar night. And I was eating a piece of this cooked potato, and it had nothing on it. And I was like, oh, where'd you get these potatoes? They're really good. He's like, the same place I always get them. And I'm like, well, what kind are they? It's like, the same kind they always are. And I kept asking him, I kept saying, but they're so good. Why are these potatoes so good? And he's like, honey, they're the same, but there's nothing about them. They're just potatoes. So that's when I knew, and I started noticing that I just had more sensitivity to flavors, and like things that were salty. I started to notice, especially if you cut back on your salt, you'll start to notice, like if you go to a restaurant, you're like, oh wow, this is so salty. So, and that's the other thing too, like you can flavor your food with things like salt if it's just super bland. Like if you're eating something and you're just like, there's absolutely no flavor in this, you can add a little more salt to it to bring out that flavor. So I normally wouldn't put this many olives in here, but I really want to use these up. I opened up a can about a week ago and didn't use very many, so I think, well, actually I'm making a Mexican dish tomorrow, so I'll save those for that. Olives are one of my favorite foods. I love olives. All right, so that pasta's ready. I did lie. Let's put a little bit of water in here and we'll kind of quick steam these veggies. And like I said, I'm using a non-stick pan. And I don't know about you, but I like my vegetables kind of with a little bit of bite. Yeah, I don't cook them till they're super, super soft. But that pasta is ready, so we'll go ahead and drain that. And then we'll move on to talking about palate. All right, so yeah, just keep that in mind. Give it some time. Try adding a little salt. And one thing about it is, you don't necessarily, like with this cheese sauce or this Alfredo sauce, I put the salt. One trick that you can do is you can have one of the little salt cups at your table where you pinch the salt, and you can just put it right on top of your food. That way when you take a bite, the salt hits your taste buds and you taste that salt, and have it, instead of having it be cooked into the meal or cooked out of the meal, it's just going to be right on top of your food. It's going to hit those taste buds. So it's kind of a funny thing to do, but sometimes I do that because I don't want to have a ton of salt. But since I've eliminated processed foods, my diet is really low in salt anyway. So it's okay to get that salt back in. And of course, you want to get a good quality salt, like a Himalayan or a sea salt, Celtic salt, something like that. But yeah, you can sprinkle it right on your bite so that you have just a little bit on your bite, and then eat it, and you'll get that full exposure to that salt. That's all. Okay, so number 2, for 3 tips for success on a plant-based diet. So it says some of you are going to be more restricted than others when it comes to the diversity of foods that you can personally tolerate. If you have a highly restrictive diet due to allergies or sensitivities, then yes, it does become more difficult and challenging to stay satisfied with a plant-based diet. To this, I would say make it your mission to find the foods and plant-based recipes that you feel your best and are satisfied. Stick to those for now. Yes, consequently, it may be boring temporarily, but as long as healing is taking place, then you are heading in the right direction. Okay? So really discover the foods that you love and create kind of an arsenal. You know what I mean? Like I just have a few recipes that I just keep rotating through. How's that look? Bright green. That looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is put this pasta right back into the pot. I'm going to add these veggies right into the pot. And then we're going to put our sauce in and our olives. I'll do this right here so you can see. What is it? So this is our cheese sauce. We're going to pour it right in. See that? And we want to get every last... This is so good, you guys. It's really good. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, that just looks so fattening. Remember, it's plant-based, so it's much less calorie dense, which we're going to talk more about next. So much less calorie dense than a regular fettuccine Alfredo. And you've got all these wonderful vegetables in there. And again, if you're trying to gain weight, add more cashews. If you're trying to lose weight, cut back a little bit, or, add more vegetables. We're going to be talking about satiation as well. So here in a minute, add more vegetables if you are trying to lose weight, so that the majority of this is vegetables as opposed to, pasta and a lot of sauce. So it's a Vitamix sin to make this dish and not rinse your blender right away, because this cheese will be hard to clean later. Get all of this in me. We'll give it a mix in that cheese. So this will be enough, for me to have a couple of meals. This is a lot. But I've been working out, so I need more calories. So this is great. I mean, you've got nice coverage with that cream sauce. Again, put the vegetables that you love. If you like cauliflower, if you like asparagus, do what you love. This is what I love, mushrooms and broccoli. So I'm going to give you a peek at how beautiful that is. And we'll just plate it up really quick. Looks good, right? Mushrooms. And that's it. Voila. All right, so stick around because my tips are really, it's good content. I promise, it's good content. So yeah, you want to really develop an arsenal of recipes that you love, and that's going to take time, right? You're going to do some trial and error. You're going to find some that maybe really were family pleasers and some not so much. Maybe some you just absolutely love and you just eat those a lot. And I don't know, I've been vegan over 6 years now and I haven't gotten tired of anything. I haven't gotten tired of anything, and I kind of go through the same recipes that I love. And the nice thing about cooking these same recipes over and over is you can kind of throw them together without even thinking. Like, I'm trying to follow the recipe just for obvious reasons, but you can just kind of throw them together without even thinking. You get pretty quick at it. It's less intimidating. Like, you know how you come home from work and you're just like, oh, I really don't feel like cooking. It's too much work. It takes too much time. I don't want to think. Once you have this arsenal of recipes, you can just like start throwing things together without thinking. When you go to the store, you know what you're low on, you know what you need. You can keep kind of this ongoing list of the staples. And by the way, if you haven't noticed, in the file section of the Facebook group, there is a shopping list in there for the ingredients that you need for these recipes. I think there's 4 different files in there, and those are free, of course. They're just PDFs that you can print out and use for reference. All of the common trigger foods are in a file. All of the approved foods are in a file. What else? There's one more. I think all my favorite kitchen appliances are in a file. So those are in the file section of the Plant I Reflux Facebook group. So yeah, really figure out what you love and eat those foods. Eat the heck out of those foods. Like, one of the things I really love is a fruit salad, or maybe even like mango puree. That's one of my favorite things. Just if my mangoes are getting like overly ripe, I'll put all the flesh in a blender, blend it up, make a puree. I might eat it with a little bit of yogurt in it because it's really sweet, and that plain yogurt kind of tempers the sweetness, so you get kind of a sweet and sour thing going on. I love that. And you know, if I'm eating 5 mangoes, that works for me for a meal, and I love every bite. So you really need to figure out what you love. Okay, we got a couple of questions here. Should we be supplementing with B12? Yes, and I'll be talking about that in my next live. We'll be talking a little bit about that. Hey, Maria says, you inspired me with hiatal hernia. I'm getting better. Oh, that's good to hear. Thanks for that feedback, Maria. So I like to hear that. Oh, there it goes. Where'd it go? Okay, so let's go on. So the next thing is the third tip. Oh, a lot of comments here. The third tip is, and we're not going to, I'm just going to talk a little bit about this now, and we'll talk about more about it in the next one. And that is, if you're starving, you won't like your diet. This is so important to understand. Satiation and avoiding hunger on any diet come down to the following 3 things. So we're just going to briefly go over these 3 things, but I'm going to talk more in depth about these 3 things in my next slide, because I'm going to go ahead and get out and eat my food, and then I got places to be. So just briefly, if you're trying a plant-based diet, if you're trying a vegan diet, if you're trying any diet, and you're hungry all the time, you're going to fail, right? You're going to fail. If you feel deprived and you're starving all the time and you have mood swings and you're cranky, you're going to fail. You've got to get in the food. And so these 3 things that I talk about are, one, is satiation, is achieving satiation, how to achieve satiation. So there's 3 things. There's meeting your caloric needs, meeting your nutrient needs, and creating the stretch response of your stomach, really meeting that stretch response fulfillment. So number 1 is meeting your caloric needs. So we've talked about this before, but it's really, really important to understand that when you go on a plant-based diet, in general, you're going to be eating less calories, okay? So at the end of the day, if you didn't meet your caloric needs, you're going to be hungry, okay? But this is really a trifecta. It's these 3 things combined together is what causes you to achieve true satiation. I'm going to say that again. This trifecta, these 3 things that I'm going to talk about just briefly, are how you achieve true satiation. In other words, like, you may eat a ton of food and then you're hungry an hour later, and you're like, well, how is that even possible? How am I hungry after I ate? You go to a restaurant and you eat all this food and you're hungry. Like, why is that? You have to do all 3. You have to achieve caloric needs, nutrient needs, and get those stretch receptors to expand. And so if you're restricting your calories or portion controlling, you're gonna be hungry. You're just gonna be hungry. So one is meeting your caloric needs. So how do we do that? And again, I'm gonna go into more depth in this in my next live. But you need to make sure that you're eating enough calories for you throughout the day. And we'll talk about that more in the next live. You also need to meet your nutrient needs. And that just means, like the example I just gave. Let's say you go to a restaurant and you get a double bacon cheeseburger with french fries and a milkshake. You're going to meet your caloric needs, but you might not meet your nutrient needs. Okay? You might not meet your nutrient needs. There might not be a ton, it might just be a lot of empty calories. Or maybe a couple of candy bars for lunch. You all know that that's just empty calories. That's empty calories means where's the nutrition? Where's the fiber? Where's the water? Where's the vitamins? Where's the minerals in my food? If you're eating food that's not rich in nutrients, you might be hungry later, especially, and again, it's the trifecta. You really want to achieve all three: calorics, nutrients, and the stretch receptors. So you have to understand nutrition, and you have to understand really that if you're eating a variety and an abundance of plant foods throughout the day, you're probably going to meet your caloric needs if you're eating a lot, and you're going to meet your nutrient needs because there's lots of nutrition in plants. Okay. So that's the other one. And then the third one is activating those stretch receptors. So that's exactly what it sounds like. It's when your stomach expands because it's full and those stretch receptors are activated to tell you that you're full. That needs to occur in order to achieve true satiation. So that's why we eat a large volume of food. And again, like for this, if you're one, and I know we've got people in here that are trying to gain weight, we have people that are trying to lose weight, and neither is the point of this cookbook. The cookbook is to help you heal from your reflux. But a meal like this, let's say you're trying to lose weight, you could do double the vegetables, right, and half the pasta. And that's going to decrease your calories because there's not that many calories in vegetables. They're so low in calories, right? The pasta is higher in calories. So if you're trying to lose weight, you want to bulk up the veggies and really get that volume so your stomach is expanding. You're going to meet your nutrient needs easily, and likely you'll meet your caloric needs. It's actually not that hard to meet your caloric needs on a plant-based diet as long as you're eating a good volume of food. Now, if you're in that mentality, as many of us are, I would say, especially women, we have this kind of conditioning where we need to, cut our portions small, or we need to restrict, or we need to watch what we're eating because we're on a diet, and I got to go to that reunion, and I got to go to that wedding, and all that kind of thing. And so we're constantly like obsessed and worried about, and I know this doesn't apply to everybody, but that's been my experience, most of my adult life anyway. Since I was a teenager, really, just like always having this bad relationship with food where I feel like, no, I can't. Now, probably it's what I love, besides the healing, it's what I love about this diet the most, is the freedom to eat. I look forward to eating more than I ever did when I was a meat eater. Not that I loved meat, I loved eggs, I loved dairy, but I look forward to eating now more than I ever did. And I think it's because the palate, the flavors in plant foods, I get to eat an abundance of food, and I have that bad relationship with food has totally gone away. I don't have a bad relationship with food anymore. When it's time to eat, I look forward to it because it's going to be delicious, and I look forward to eating as much as I care for. And that's not to say I just try to stuff myself, although in the beginning I did. I really tried to really eat until I couldn't possibly stand another bite because I wanted to stick to this diet so badly when I started because I was healing and I wanted to stick to it for life. And so that's my message to you guys. If you're really to stick to this because you can really understand logically that it'll be beneficial for your health, or maybe you're starting to experience that just in the couple of weeks that we've been doing this. Maybe you're starting to notice you're feeling better here and there, that healing is taking place. Then you want to keep doing it, right? You don't just want to do it for a month and then go right back to what you were doing before. Like whatever you were doing before is likely what got you in this trouble in the first place. So if you're overcoming the bloating and you're overcoming the constipation by doing plant-based, those are good things. Those are going to really stimulate good, healthy digestion and regularity, and that's going to radiate out into healing and good health. So we're going to talk a little bit more in depth because when I get into some of these, I do talk about, nutrient deficiencies, which on a plant-based diet, so again, we'll get into this more, but since you did ask the question, Suzanne, on a plant-based diet, it's really easy to meet all of your nutrient needs with a couple of exceptions. And so I'm going to talk about those exceptions. One of them is B12. And then, really that's only the nutrient that you need to supplement. And there's a really good reason for that. It doesn't have anything to do with being on a plant-based diet. But also you need to, you have to have good, strong stomach acid. If you don't have good, strong stomach acid, then you might have the healthiest diet in the world, but your body's not absorbing all those nutrients because your digestion is slowed and things are being fully broken down. So there's 3 different things that we'll talk about. But yes, I do recommend, of course, I'm not a doctor. I only recommend supplementing with B12 because it's what all the plant-based doctors that I follow recommend, every single one of them. And interesting note, they recommend it for non-vegans as well. So whether you're plant-based or not, supplementing with the B12 supplement is a really good idea. And we'll talk about more in the next slide. So I'm going to get to, you guys want to see me take a bite? Let you know if this is any good. Still a little steamy in there. That's good. I love my pasta. I do. I do not, I've never restricted my pasta intake because it is one of my absolute favorite foods. Always has been. When I was a little girl, we would have spaghetti, and my dad, and I was really thin as a little girl because I had arthritis and I was anemic and I was really thin. But we would have spaghetti, and I would always go back for like seconds and thirds and fourths, and my dad would be like, slow down, you've had enough. And my mom would be like, let her eat. But I love spaghetti, and I love this. But oh, it's perfect. Really good. Okay. All right, I gotta get going. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you next time.